reached out to them. They were reaching out to the wrong member of the family.
I have an update.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the property has been in a family trust, and the town reached out to the address that was... The property is in a family trust, and the town reached out to the address that was in our files. That has since changed. I have a meeting tomorrow with a family member associated with that property. So there's going to be some discussion about
that.
what their interest might be in allowing public use, and we're going to explore that.
Okay. And funding for that would come out of the
Well,
town lands reserve?
I think we just need to
necessary?
wait and see where
Wait and
this,
see.
I don't know if we're talking about a gift, a donation, a lease,
Got it.
purchase. This is all just the beginning of a discussion.
Okay, thank you. Marge?
I just want to simplify this down. The goal in the end is to have 2 docks, right?
One.
One, bigger and stronger than what was there.
Yeah. With a float going
With an
to the
additional
south.
float.
So right now, if you picture an L with it going to the north, we'd like to still have that, but also have the float coming off to the south.
Got it.
Were you asking just about at Potts Point, though, or are you saying in town? Because there is a goal to have one at Mitchell Field.
Don't confuse me.
Okay, okay.
But not.
I'm just
that's
trying to
not-
keep up.
That's not happening this year? Okay. Further down.
With better parking, is my point.
Right. Everybody good?
Behind you, Christie. Behind you was a question.
Oh,
Hi, I'm sorry, go ahead.
he was so quiet back there. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, Mike Dana, Potts Point. From what I hear, and from what I've been to a lot of these meetings also, but what makes this a little more urgent is my understanding that this work would have to be completed by February 26 to gather the FEMA funds. So in 14 or 15 months, to get that extra, whatever number it is, yeah, that would have to be, there'd have to be a new pier there, right? So,
There's extensions.
Yeah, there are
Oh,
some
there are.
opportunities for extension,
oh, okay.
but there is a limit at some
Yeah.
point.
Okay, I didn't realize that, but thank you.
That's new info. From the fire administrator.
Right, thank you for bringing that up. But now it's good to hear there are extensions, too.
Just one final thing, and I guess this is, Christie, this is for you, with respect to the warrant that would be presented.
Mackin, can you speak into the microphone?
With respect to the warrant that you're drafting in your head at this point, will there be the best estimate of what the total cost would be? Because it would be too bad to, spend a lot of money and say, whoa, we need another 100,000 or something like that.
And I can really appreciate that question, which is why the town hired Tim Forrester, who works with the company called Flycatcher. He is a professional who has designed numerous docks and float systems in Harpswell and coastal Maine, and so I think we're looking to him to give us a design and cost estimates that we can take forward.
Okay, and that estimate will be somehow communicated in the warrant, so people
It
will know.
would be communicated, we would have a public meeting where he
Great.
presents the information, the design, we can take questions, comments, et cetera. I think we want to try to do that before the article goes on the warrant.
Great, sounds like you have it covered. Thank you.
Well, yes, but things get crunched and pushed, and so that's the kind of perfect scenario that we'd like to see happen before the March town meeting.
Right.
But in the end, it will be the people who show up at the town meeting on March 8th who will vote on this warrant article. It will not be a secret ballot item. You won't be able to vote 60 days in advance, or 30 days in advance, excuse me, but you have to come to that meeting. So,
Have the select board made a decision on what's going on in secret ballot?
well, we won't have this ready. You have to have your secret ballot ready by January 8th. We won't be ready with this. Tim Forrester won't be
No
ready.
chance whatsoever.
Doubtful that he can do this in 30 days. He needs more time.
Thank you, Paul.
Thanks.
Are we, I guess we're good with the town dock for now.
Thank you.
That's just a precursor.
Well,
You don't want to hear about climbing over seaweed-covered rocks
No, we
all
don't.
summer.
it's good to have practice.
Bad knees. Okay, thank you, and thank you,
Rehearsal.
Mr. Dana, for speaking.
May I ask,
So-
could we turn the heat down?
We turn this
You're having a hot flash?
Wait a second.
It is hot.
I think it's off. Wait a minute.
No, I heard something.
It's gone off. Something's happened.
You turned it off? If you
Great.
want low, oh, that's off.
Oh, that's off.
You don't want it on blue, that's cold.
Okay, I don't want cold.
You're on white, that's fine.
Thanks.
All right, let's, because
Okay, back to the agenda of the business. Account 1226 is Town Landings, and that is Mr. Plummer's area also.
So the Town Lands Committee has asked for an additional $10,000 for repair of Hildreth Road Landing. We believe it's gonna need some professional grading and maybe some material to make that appropriate again. It's just continually washing out and making it pretty dangerous for anyone who doesn't have a significant pickup truck. Or if you have a trailer, it's very dangerous.
Is that to replace some picnic tables too, Paul?
I believe it was
What location?
Graveyard Point,
Graveyard?
oh, great.
Wait a minute,
and I forgot my email that I sent to you.
it says Giant Stairs, and, no. Hildreth Road. Hildreth Road
For fixing up the road, but there's also some funding for replacing picnic tables.
at Hildreth.
Oh,
There's no
No.
picnic
No.
tables at Hildreth,
At
so I was
Graveyard.
asking which
Where
locations.
did I read that? I did read it.
Well, I typed 2025, replace picnic tables and regrade Hildreth
Oh, okay,
Road
picnic
Landing.
tables someplace else.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
Sorry
At
about that.
Graveyard.
Graveyard Point.
I didn't know there were picnic tables at Graveyard.
There is not one right now because it rotted away. We removed it.
So we're gonna have more than one,
A new one.
a new one. So one picnic table and regrade Hildreth Point. Okay, thank you.
Do we have one at Mackerel Cove?
Yes, there is one there.
That-
That
that's
one
in
seems to
good-
be in pretty good shape. Yep.
But that's okay.
And is it correct that we, do we carry over the 9.3 thousand that's not spended in this account?
Unless there's a specific project for that, we tend to not do that for operations. This is one of those weird ones that you may recall for several years, we have carried over funding. Each year, it was for a different project. Primarily, Lookout Point has been on the horizon for quite some time, and so the funds were carried over into 2024, and then, of course, January happened. And so all sorts of expenses came up and did not get to studying Lookout Point, but that, I'm not sure where the Town Lands Committee says that project is at this point.
So they're kind of heavily leaning on the Climate Resiliency Committee because there's a lot of grant funding that can possibly go towards engineering something like this because it's a hugely impacted area in town.
So,
So is it carried or
Yes,
not?
that's my
We don't
question.
know, it sounds like.
Terry, is it carried forward or not?
At this point, it wasn't going to be a staff recommendation, but we can review that as we come to the end of the year for the list of recommended carryovers to the Board of Selectmen. But at this point, it's not a recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Any improvements that they may be discussing with R&S would come from R&S funding and grants.
All right.
So unless it's specifically lined up, we don't carry it over just for purposes of continuing to carry over.
All right, thank you. Mackin, did you have another question?
No, that was
That was
the
it,
question.
same question, okay. Any more questions for Paul on town landings? Okay, law enforcement, I don't know that Paul, should we jump down to marine wardens and marine consultants?
Sure.
Do you, marine wardens, wait a minute, let me get there. 3110.
So we are just recommending an additional $1,000 in the repair and boat maintenance. I don't know if it got corrected in the final work plan, but there was a major expense with the trailer this year, very early on. And initially in the books that I got, it had come out of the wrong account. It should have come out of boat repair and maintenance. So that's why you see it looks like very little was expended out of that account, but that's where it should have come out. So we're keeping the fuel amount the same, but 2272 go up by 1,000, just because, like I said, every year, anytime something breaks, it breaks hard on the airboat, and every year it's a year older, so we just got to plan for that.
How old is that boat? Has it been
2018,
5
so it's,
18?
yeah.
And
6
its life
years.
cycle?
It's probably at least a 20-year boat. I think keeping it in a nice heated garage, and the wardens do a great job at keeping it maintained and washed.
Good.
There's annual maintenance that goes with it, obviously things rust out, but the motor itself is in great condition and the hull's in great condition.
Good.
Has it had its annual winterization?
It has not, and there's a couple things, a couple minor things that need to be addressed, like the bilge. And,
You can just let me know when that goes.
yeah.
Questions for Paul? No.
So this might be the good place where you had your questions on the landings?
Oh, the shellfish landing.
Shellfish landing.
That's we're coming to that next, right?
Oh, I have it under 31-1.
It is under there, and yeah, okay, so, if we flip to the third
Oh, thank you.
page in this section, Terry got us newly revised,
Paul did, but.
and Paul did, thank you, Paul.
Yeah, sure.
This information comes from you or the state?
The state.
State, and does this, for the oysters, well, for any of it, is it wild harvest or is it aquaculture?
Oh, it's gone back and forth, and I put it in the town report for last year, the caveat, and I can't remember which way it went, so I apologize. I'd have to look back. The soft shell and quahog is wild. It's the American oysters I'm not positive on. I'm not sure if that's both.
And
farmed.
European?
And European, there aren't a whole lot of European oyster farmers, so they mostly be wild.
Well,
Oh,
Snow Island doesn't.
And the
very
last
small.
column on this, is that harvesters, it's just,
Harvesters.
okay.
Could you come back with that distinction? So
Sure.
That would be really interesting to know.
Sure.
Right, because we have a lot of aquaculture going on in Harpswell, is that right?
We have at least the most LPAs in the state.
Do we really?
So out of 740 something LPAs.
Limited purpose
Harpswell has
something.
100. Limited purpose aquaculture license.
Right.
And those are annual?
Annual renewals, yeah.
How many of the other type do we have?
I think we have 3 standard and 1 or 2 experimental that are active.
And the standard are how many years?
20 years.
20 years, and experimental is?
3.
3, okay.
In total, I'm sorry.
Oh, so this is under our marine officers section. What is their role in the aquaculture?
The shellfish wardens don't do anything with, so under state law, nobody can touch aquaculture gear except for a marine patrol officer,
We do,
a state marine patrol officer.
state, okay.
Yeah, the only 2 things that under statute, local shellfish wardens can't touch are lobster traps and aquaculture leases. So
Okay.
they don't play any role other than if they were just to help a state marine patrol officer with an inspection or something like that for officer safety.
Okay, so we're not sure, and it's American oysters only that are aquaculture?
No, so European are farmed. I'm just saying in
Oh, okay.
totality, American is by far the largest.
So it
farmed.
appears, yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
And the
go ahead.
question, total value, that's based upon some calculation of current market, an average or something?
Yeah, it's the market that, I don't know how DMR evaluates it. I'm sure they pick down East Midcoast and Southern Maine and create an average on that.
Very interesting. It just seems like a huge number.
It is
Yes.
a huge number.
For American
Yeah.
oysters? Yeah.
For 17 harvesters?
Yeah.
In Harpswell?
Yeah,
That's in Harpswell.
Just in Harpswell.
Just in Harpswell, and that's the value, just in Harpswell?
Yes. All these numbers are just for Harpswell.
Yeah,
And that's $1 million.
$1 million of American oysters.
Million too.
Right.
A lot of
And
money.
were these
Around it.
reported online? They're on the DMR site?
They are, yep, you
They're
can
on
find all
the-
this on the DMR website.
Uh-huh.
You can search by port, so Harpswell, just so you're aware, if you do a search, you have to type in Harpswell, Harpswell Center, Cundy's Harbor, and Bailey Island to get all of Harpswell encompassed.
Harpswell Center would be all of the net.
I don't know why
We
they
don't
did
know.
that, but-
Okay.
And did you have to do that
How about
to get
North
like the
Harps?
17?
Or
Did you
east?
have to put that all together?
And you can choose the year, you can go all the way back to 2008.
No, but when you got the number of harvesters,
It prints that out for you.
and you did that for the 4 areas in Harpswell?
Yep.
Yeah. okay,
Yep.
okay. Just asking.
Yep.
Thanks.
So to your point that this is largely or exclusively under state jurisdiction, does the town of Harpswell spend any money
That's aquaculture, right?
So-
on this page?
I would say the town spends a significant amount of money in staff time to evaluate these things, along with committee time. Well, committees don't get paid, but there's a lot of time that goes into reviewing these. The town does charge a review fee now that Harpswell was the leader in getting that change at the state level. So yeah, so I would say probably, and I'm keeping track of that with this new dispatch program we're using. So at the end of the year, I'll be able to provide you numbers on how much time was actually spent in aquaculture review. But it's significant in the scheme of things.
So okay, I was trying to assimilate all that. We charge a fee for them, the aquaculture farmer, to come in and get his plan reviewed.
Yes.
And does that cover your expenses, or?
I would probably not. It's $50 per application.
Okay.
And if there needs to be a site review, which is typically myself or Greg that goes out and just evaluates the area. So you're talking boat time, fuel. But $50 is the max amount that can be charged under statute.
Oh. So we have no discretion at all to raise it to cost?
Not without a legislative change.
Not even, is it adjusted by cost of living annually, or is it?
$50 is in statute, yep.
If you're doing a renewal, so you have 100 of these that are annual, it's $50 every year?
It's not, no, it's one time. So DMR just asks every year for the renewals, does the town have any issues with existing? Generally speaking, if we don't get any complaints, we say no. There's nothing else on our end that we have to do. DMR just renews it.
Okay, and I know Terry's ready to speak, but I was wondering about, I know we have shellfish licenses that people have to get for the aquaculture farmers, I'm gonna call them. We get nothing besides that $50 fee?
Correct.
Okay. Terry,
You just made my point,
Oh.
basically. I thought Dave's question was not just aquaculture on this page, but what costs do we have associated with all these landings? And that's our marine warden program. So our whole contract with the marine warden, they're checking our shellfish licenses, their landings, their catch, if
Yep.
they're following all the rules, staying out of the closed areas, things of that nature. I don't know if you have questions for the marine part of the contract while Paul is here, since he works very closely with the marine wardens.
I guess if I could just ask maybe the final question, should our select board petition our representative then for relief in this? Because with this rapidly growing industry, it's a rapidly going subsidy from the taxpayers to cover the expense that you have.
So it's interesting. So I believe, I don't remember what year, but when we went for a legislative change or to create this law, we had asked basically what DMR is charging, which was $50. Within a year or two, DMR said, you know what, ours is going to be $100. But per statute, yours is still $50. So certainly the town could ask for language to be changed to match whatever the state or whatever the select board would choose to have for language, but.
But in the scheme of things, it's a one-time fee, and we have 100. And so, on the scheme of all of our fees, it's not a large impact on the budget is my point for this. There's fees that have a much larger impact, and so, I mean, that could, of course, be up to the Board of Selectmen, and we appreciate Paul's time on all of that, but some of that may fall under service. I'm not sure for 100 that have already come and gone, and now how many do you get new a year?
Well, my
Less than
question,
10, less than 5, maybe?
So if you have 5 a year, so you're talking petitioning and getting a legislation changed for 5 applicants.
what, Terry, my real point is that we have a rapidly growing industry with a rapidly growing expense level from your time and oversight and all the rest, and yet we're not being remunerated for it in any way, like you are with moorings, for instance.
Right.
And not to make too much of a mountain out of the molehill, but Harpswell uniquely is disadvantaged by this scheme, given the intensity of the aquaculture that occurs in this town.
That's my point.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe worth attention there.
Maybe that will be part of the aquaculture working group's recommendation. There is a committee reviewing aquaculture.
Are they discussing that? I went to one meeting.
They're not yet. We can bring that to them if the admin would
Yeah.
prefer.
I mean, other than the review process, like just on an annual basis, how much effort is expended with respect to these sites? Whether it's complaints, it doesn't matter what it is, it's your time as it relates somehow to the fact that these exist.
There's a lot of, the public doesn't know who to go to, so the first person they go to is the harbor master. And then we have to redirect them to the state, or try and educate them, or whatever the case may be, whatever was appropriate at the time. And all that adds up, right? So it's just one extra duty that we have to take on.
Okay. Not gonna make or break our budget, but I think it's a good
Yeah.
point, which is we always, in some way, try to look at revenues as they derive from specific activities versus the expenses. And in many cases, like shellfish harvesting, we say, those don't need to match, but let's just see what that proportionality looks like, right?
Well, I think there's a difference between the shellfish program and aquaculture.
There is.
And the state has said municipalities can have their own shellfish ordinance and regulate that industry within the intertidal zone. When it comes to aquaculture,
Different.
outside the intertidal zone, the state's been pretty clear that it's taking jurisdiction
Very
over
clear.
that, and that it's suggesting the town can have input in an advisory capacity, and so that's sort of the role. It's very different. We could not have a shellfish program locally for soft-shell clams without having some enforcement
Correct.
mechanism.
Correct.
And that's why we have the marine warden system. It's for that local program.
Right. But sounds like, well, never mind, I'm going to beat a dead horse if I say anymore.
Well, I mean, I think the state just keeps saying to us, we regulate this, and we ask for your advice in certain areas, and we will take it under advisement. Is that what they say? I mean, you know better than I do.
Yep. And they're getting better, they're, like any department in the state, they are trying to focus more resources now into the aquaculture program.
Yes.
They've hired a couple folks to actually do inspections, because prior to that, it was marine patrol officers.
Yeah.
Marine patrol officers don't have the expertise to inspect. They're not scientists, they're not biologists, and they have too much going on themselves. So they're starting to slowly invest into their program.
I mean, if they're already asking, it seems like it behooves us to at least be able to respond to say, we spend this much as it relates to all activities related to those farms, and we are either making money or losing money. But without information, the state's gonna do nothing, right?
Yeah.
They still may do nothing because they have exclusive jurisdiction, but at least they've asked to hear, they volunteered to have you present the case to them.
I think, just from the amount of meetings that I've been in DMR with about aquaculture, they make it abundantly clear. They're not biased. They do their job, but they're doing their job per statute, and then that's how they throw it back on us and say, if you want to change, you have to go through the legislative
Right.
process.
Oh, I get it.
And so I think that's where we're at, is nothing's going to change unless someone's willing to do that.
Mackin?
My final is, missing, of course, from your list is seaweed harvesting. Is that involved, are you involved in the oversight there in
We're
any
not.
way?
Nope, so this is just municipal shellfish program, and you also see I did not include razor clams, because there's so few harvesters that DMR won't release that information, because it's proprietary to the 1 or 2 harvesters.
And
You could-
worms also.
Worms are also separate from the municipal shellfish program.
we just did fees a year ago, I think. Is that right, or was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, it was
A year ago.
Year.
And I thought I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, that we understood that about 20% of your time was for aquaculture. The 80% was for moorings, et cetera. And so we had our fees covering 80%. No, you're looking at me like.
I don't think we had time for aquaculture in
No, we
there.
didn't, but we asked him, and he said, yes. You know, it's-
I thought he had 20% on landings, town property landings. But I mean, if you're,
And shellfish program and harbor master.
so, I mean,
He's got
If you want me to
140% of his salary. No, I'm joking. I feel like I just remember that number, but maybe you're right. You're probably right.
I mean, the harbor
You're the
master is,
expert.
there's.
It's a big job.
Yeah, there's roughly 135K of revenue associated with that activity, which costs 171, so it's substantially,
Yeah.
pays its own way. Did we raise,
We
we
raised-
suggest that the fees be looked at? And
It was a
anything
year
done with the
ago.
fees?
Did we raise them a year ago, or was it raised before?
For moorings,
Right.
it's been a while, been a little while.
Well, we
Yeah.
did look at it.
you did look at them and they were held.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not suggesting that, it was
Right. Well, that's where we came up with our numbers or something. But we have no fee for anyone using a town landing. But that's, as Terry's saying, 20% of his job. So it's a service to people.
There's no dinghy fee? I thought
Yes,
there was a
there,
dinghy.
oh, don't even talk about dinghies. Don't.
We'll have to have the disclaimer again.
Should we order in dinner?
Only one,
Well, thank
we aren't talking about that this year because there's no place to put them. So back on our agenda, thank you, Paul. I think
Yeah.
we're done with this part, is that right? Did you want to say anything about the marine wardens
Not unless there's any questions?
expenses?
Did you want to talk about how, don't they go out and kind of do some water quality testing?
They do.
I mean, there's some-
That's part of their shellfish operation.
It is, yeah. So they, I mean, they don't just drive around and look and check for shellfish harvesters, you know, they're doing water quality sampling. They, most recently been helping us with, we have Mount Ararat students come and do mudflat tours. We're trying to work towards a bigger project out in Strawberry Creek, so they'll be involved with that. So we're really trying to get them more into the community engagement, community policing type aspect of it, and I think it's going really well.
This is sort of tangentially related to the budget, but where do you keep your equipment? And is it centrally located, or is it dispersed? Is it in a good place for you, or long-term, do you see a different?
We're going to get to,
So-
we're-
How about this? What's your long-term wish
Dave,
list?
that's on the agenda later.
Okay.
So you want me to wait?
No, I'll cease
Hold
and
on.
desist, how's that?
I'll get too confused. No.
Question withdrawn.
And which equipment, yeah. Okay, so we're good with this one, I think.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yes. It's about 250,000, looks like, for marine wardens.
Yep.
Okay. Marine consultant and conservation, which is the next one in your book.
So this account actually has a reduction. There was very little used in 2024. What was used was for the third annual landowner appreciation event, where the harvesters harvest wild product, they make chowder, and they serve the folks who provide access to the mud flats, and they're also encouraging anybody to come so they can help educate them and show them why access is important. The committee itself has kind of taken, I don't want to say a step back from proactive conservation, but I think what they're seeing now is seasonal closures tend to be a little bit more effective, letting the natural wild habitat take over itself. So for example, 2 years in a row now, the committee's voted to close Coag Bay. And that was from August to December 1st. And the goal is to do that while they have just spawned leading up into summer, and give them time to settle, grow out, or at least a little baby spat, and then they'll provide a nice paycheck for Christmas time for folks to kind of stock up for winter. So that's kind of been their focus over the last year and a half, is more about seasonality. less about being proactive with growing seed, just because the amount of person power it takes to grow seed. If you remember, we had an upweller a couple of years ago, and that took a significant amount of time. In fact, it came down to Greg and I, my deputy harbor master, cleaning it more frequently just because we couldn't get the help from the rest of the harvesters. So. Participation is key with enhancement projects.
So are you not using the upweller anymore?
We're not, and that was funded through a grant, so we got, that was a trial period,
Okay.
basically.
I was, maybe had the misapprehension, I thought participating in projects like this was mandatory if you had a license.
They can
intent.
buy their way out.
Ah,
So they can pay, I think it's a $600 fee to buy their conservation, but it's all or nothing. So they have to do 3 conservation events. If you do all 3, you get a license fee reduction, which is, I believe, $300 for commercial resident. If you do not, you gotta pay the $600, but you can't do 1 conservation and get $200 off. So you have to do all 3 or none at all.
is that working in your judgment? Because you just suggested it's not. You're not getting the help you need.
Yeah, it's still not, I'd say it's still not working, because some folks say that they can go out in the middle of July and make that $600 in 3 tides, you know, and so that's just, they would have missed one of those doing conservation, plus 2 more, right,
So the obvious response is no longer give people the opt-out. You know, just say, want a license? This is the deal.
So does that fee need to be looked at if it's,
Paul, remind me, before that change, isn't that how it used to be? You had to
It is.
attend concert, and so then that wasn't working either. So people in the 11th hour before licenses were to be applied for were running around trying to get doctor notes, trying to get all sorts of things, but that they didn't do their conservation. So the committee thought that this would be an encouragement to save some money. And so they've discussed different ways. Bottom line is somebody's always going to find a reason not to do it. And so they have been trying to figure it out. I think you have had more participation because there are some people that do want the discount, and so they will participate, but maybe they don't want to clean the upwell, or maybe they'll pick a day that picks up trash. So it's not mandatory what type you do. So this area, you can't mandate this. They can sign up for a number of different days, and it could be one that the day is better or the activity is better.
What's your participation rate in the voluntary activities, roughly?
Probably just over 50%, probably, maybe 60.
It's not bad.
it's not bad.
But what has worked, and is not tied to any fee, is that they have to attend 2 meetings, 2
Mandatory.
mandatory Shellfish Committee meetings, because they were not being involved in their own, this is their livelihood, and they were not coming and helping formulate it, and so you get a good turnout, and behind the scenes, it's because it's mandatory, which is good that that's working.
Does the incremental $600 that you get from the 50% that aren't participating in the voluntary program offset the expenses that are required to make up for the lack of the voluntary activities?
I'd have to, probably not. I mean, or probably it does, but because we're talking about trash pickup. I mean, I don't know what the cost for the recycling center to remove. I mean, it's sometimes it's large debris.
There was a lot of cleanup this year after
There
the
was,
storm.
there was.
And when you say incremental, it's
Well, if you
it's
don't
300
participate,
or
you pay
600,
in
is
the
that right?
600.
So it's 300 if you do your conservation, it's 900.
Oh, 900, okay, I've forgotten that, all right.
And if Mac, and go back to what you said earlier about possibly looking at, should you increase it? I believe we are restricted under DMR laws that we cannot go above a certain percentage for a license fee. So, and that's included, a conservation fee is included in a license fee.
Percentage of what?
I don't remember the exact amount, but it's a percentage that you can't charge X amount. I gotta find the language, I'll get it back to you guys.
But it's a percentage of your fee, or what's it a percentage?
Yeah, I think it's the total fee, but
Do you know what Brunswick does for any incentive to perform conservation?
I believe they can now buy their way out if they
Okay.
followed.
It seems like we've exchanged information with Brunswick about what works,
the
what
Civil
doesn't
War.
work, so.
Yeah.
We've looked at this issue.
And are you happy with the fee levels that you're getting from the shellfish licenses?
I mean, I don't have a stake in the fee game. I think it's appropriate to what's in the area, in the Mid-Coast region.
We just went through that a year ago.
Like compared what Harpswell charges
And-
to other towns. you know.
I think you were here.
Somehow don't remember that. but Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Maybe,
Prior to,
maybe before he joined.
Dave joined us
Yeah.
in November and we had meetings earlier that year.
Okay.
Okay, but there's no dust on that decision. That's a year. old.
Right.
That's-
And it's about every 3 years that we look at fees or
3 to
so.
5.
More on shellfish? Oh, Jane, thank you.
The language here says they're looking for grants, potentially looking for grants. If grants don't come in, is the $5,000 sufficient to do the project plus volunteers?
No, but this is also going to fall in line with the Resiliency and Sustainability Committee. So we're fortunate to have Mary Ann Naif on the Marine Resource Committee. So she does a good job at bridging that gap, and we think that this project that they're looking at for a baseline study of possibly Quahog Bay or another area like Harpswell Sound could be tied into resiliency, long-term resiliency, which could help offset with some of that funding if the town went that route.
And the good news, the new climate action plan is emphasizing working waterfront more than it did
Yes.
before. So
Yeah.
there's likely to be more opportunities. So this would again be a collaboration with the RNS.
Yes, yeah.
Well, just what I see is, among the two classes of clams, you have, gosh, 1.3 million industry here now. And
Yeah,
you're using a lot of time,
yeah.
and people are able to get out of it. And that just doesn't quite seem right, and I can see a day coming when you're going to come before us correctly and say, I need an assistant or more equipment, and, just to do the job. And it needs thought. That's,
But this isn't
For-
him.
This is Marine Wardens. Paul works with the Marine Wardens, but we have 2 full-time Marine Wardens.
No, I think Mac is talking about the count we're on, right? It's the Marine Services?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was talking about the landings for the, so,
But that's the baseline is a measure of the activity that's going on out there that has to be overseen
But
and
not
thought
by
about.
fall.
Yeah, the permitting
Well,
and
to some
all that,
extent,
yeah.
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 Permit.
Projects, anything the committee does has to go, I'm the administrative assistant to the committee, basically, is the way.
Right. So, I don't have a solution, but it just strikes me as something needs thought.
I think the Quahog growth is pretty noticeable here. We've
huge.
talked about that before. From 2016 to 2023, I mean, that's quite
Yeah.
significant.
It's huge.
If I remember, you had a deficit of volunteers to see cohogs or something, or am I misremembering?
Clean the upweller,
Was that?
to clean the upweller, which held cohog seed.
Okay.
Yeah.
But the Quahogs are kind of more resilient, is that what's happening?
They're becoming more resilient to today's
Than
climate.
the soft shell clams
Yeah,
are.
and predations, soft-shell clams are way more susceptible to milky ribbon worm, green crabs, at least cohogs can, they're harder shell, they can protect
Does
themselves.
the warming of the water in Casco Bay contribute to that?
I think everyone is on the same page, that's likely what's happening. Years ago, there's pictures from the 50s and 60s of Campbell's Soup just bailing cohogs out of McQuaid Bay.
That's right.
And then it dwindled again, and soft shell became the prevalent species, and here we are today.
Does one license allow a person to eat any of these? A shellfish license? I'm doing
If they,
wild.
I'm sorry, what's the
Harpswell
question?
license.
Yep.
Do you have your Harpswell
I don't have to
license?
say,
Can you
I'm
do
just
all
gonna
of
go
those wild?
do cohog.
The American's the only one I'm not positive about, if that's all
But you
wild.
can with a town of Harpswell license, you can harvest soft shell, quahogs, and European oysters
And American and razor clams
that are wild.
that are wild. Yeah.
In the intertidal zone or anywhere?
Yes. And the intertidal is what the town regulates.
Okay.
Wow.
A lot. Okay.
It's like my lifetime fishing license in Maine, which was $5.
Yep.
It's not easy work, though.
They earn it. They definitely earn it.
Definitely backbreaking work.
Very hard work.
Thank you. That's good discussion.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Harbor master account, 3,400. Now he's gonna talk about what all he wants.
Let's see, where are the big increases? Repair and maintenance, we've dropped it down by 2,500. We still think we need to, get it decaled, just, it takes a beating every couple of years. Chips the vinyl off the paint, or the vinyl off the boat. So just make that look pretty again.
Talk about contracted services.
Contracted services,
Went up to 10,000 from 2.
That's
It says
removal of the
removal of
derelict
abandoned.
boats.
Do you need this?
I think that was prior to the Harbor and Waterfront Committee making their suggestion about upping the Marine Hazard Fund. So I think we're trying to get it in a different way. But, so the Harbor and Waterfront Committee is suggesting going from 10,000 to 20,000 for marine hazard. So I think we could probably reduce that, assuming that that stayed, if you increase the Marine Hazard Fund, this could be reduced to not deal with the sunken vessels or derelict vessels.
So back to 2,000 maybe?
2,000 is probably safe. I don't think we've gone over 2,000 in recent years.
And if it's not derelict vessel, what is it used for?
If then it's being used and it's being maintained, we don't worry about it.
No,
No, the contracted services,
The
what's in there.
$2,000 in here, what does it get used for?
So before we got the mooring hauler, we were using, just for an example, a local contractor to remove some of the aids to navigation for us because they're just too heavy to pull up. So it's just small odd jobs that we can't do. If we have to hire a diver,
But you have a mooring hauler now.
we do. Yep, but we don't have our own diver, so we have to hire someone like that if we needed dive services. It's odd jobs that.
Odd jobs, got it. Questions? So that one tentatively will get reduced to back in 2,000.
Yep, I think that would be completely fine.
And repair and maintenance, you said, was reduced.
By 25, yeah.
What's the fleet look like? What's in the fleet?
It's a 2011 maritime skiff, 20-foot, and then there's that's only what's covered under here, and then the airboat is covered under Marine Services, which is a 2018 Diamondback airboat.
Okay, so this is just that one boat?
It is, yeah.
Maritime.
Yep.
Okay.
And it seems like every year we have,
Something.
we have a lot of electronics on that boat, so something's inevitably gonna go wrong.
Do you want to get down
So
and
it's-
talk about the
Linda?
office equipment? Yeah, go ahead.
So we're dropping to 28,000, is that correct?
Which one?
What?
The difference is
8,000.
with the amendments that we just discussed?
It'll be down to 30,000.
30,000, isn't it?
30,000.
Yeah, by
Very good.
8,000.
Thank you.
But we'll wait for Terry to fix that for us at some point. Okay, so mooring equipment. This is your own mooring equipment.
So mooring equipment is, we would like to install a couple moorings in town because it's just good to have staging moorings. We don't like to be in the practice of commandeering someone's personal mooring if we need to put a floating vessel on it. It's just not good practice. If the town doesn't own it, we shouldn't be putting on someone else's mooring. But also, we'd like to add a few more aids to navigation going. So facing Cooks, the Cribstone Bridge, there's a red and green marker there. We'd like to add a few more going up on either side of the no-wake channels to bring people up to Cox Ledge. And that would just help keep people from either veering into the mooring field, which we get a lot of complaints about, or they're hugging Cox Ledge too much and they're striking it with their prop. So it's just a better thoroughfare.
Is that a common problem, either one of those?
Yes.
But it's not your problem, it's
Yeah.
their problem.
Yeah.
They call
We get the
it-
call, though.
they-
It's an
oh,
expensive
really?
project, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the morning, feel like it's do that.
And my hobby horse, speed buoys through Bethel Point.
I know, and you've asked for numerous years, and I keep promising them. They're on the list to get there. Yes. They just haven't gotten there.
Paul, did you want to talk about how the town lands monitor is expanding and changing and now under your budget?
Yeah,
The
so-
two key things, that one and also the new mooring software, if you could hit on both those topics?
So the, under town lands previously, we had a park monitor, who would just go around and, make sure everything's working properly, people are behaving themselves. They're not law enforcement, but they're just a town staff that could friendly face to remind people to play by the rules. That did seem to work, and we can't always quantify that. You never know what the town seal and a shirt will do to persuade someone to behave, but it seemed to work. But I think the resource could be spent better to help my department in two ways. They could still do park monitoring when we don't need their help on the water. But I'm finding, as you guys are hearing, I'm spending more time in the office, and it's borderline dangerous to have Greg out there trying to do things by himself. These moorings can be heavy, this equipment can be heavy, it can just be dangerous. So we're trying to find ways that we can kind of mash a few positions together to help everybody. So it would help my department with hands-on stuff, and then when they're not helping us, they could go do town lands observations.
So is that line 1005 that we're talking
Wages
about?
part-time. Yes.
So
You're
part of that
doubling the
increase
hours,
is just inheriting this expense from a different part of the budget?
I think there was $10,000 removed from the town lands budget. We just looked at that and it was 0. It's moved over to the harbor master's budget with additional time,
Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
a
So it's a
longer
little bit of
period of
both, yeah.
time.
And I guess a related question on that increase, even though it's just basically moving numbers.
Well, but there's more time and money involved, yes.
And does the person,
Did you scope it out of going and hiring somebody to go and pick up a mooring that you've identified? I mean, one of the contracted services, is that a cheaper solution than having a town employee do it?
So the town authorized the purchase of the mooring hauler because there are no contractors that are willing to abide by the town's insurance regulations.
Got it. Okay.
So we said it was just as easy for us to go do it ourselves.
Well, it's got to be done.
It's gotta be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good answer, thank you.
does this person need to be able to operate the boat? If they're gonna go out?
Ideally, yes, they would be equally as qualified as Greg or I,
Okay, in case there were an issue, we're great with that.
100%, yep.
And you may have already addressed this, but what was going on with the office equipment line?
Oh, we're getting there.
Okay.
Is that the next one you want? Or is there?
I'm fine with going, jumping to that.
So the reason that's so large is because, so Greg and I are involved with Cumberland County's dispatch system. And so with that, we're using computers, which are great for sitting here and typing a report, but there have been multiple times when the old computer we used would bounce right off the dash of the boat and go and hit the floor. So we've upgraded one. The one that I'm using now is a Panasonic Toughbook that can withstand quite a bit of thrashing and bashing. Takes the bumps when you're going over waves. They're about $3,200. They're expensive, but it's because of what they can handle. So we'd like to upgrade Greg's laptop to that in 2025.
Got it. How old are the ones that you have now, the antiques?
No, the one that I just got it this year,
Okay,
and then the one he's using is a few years old, but again, it's a desktop laptop.
non-ruggedized.
Yeah.
Where is, there's a request for something out at Cook's.
So we are exploring, through a pilot program, the possibility of renting office space for the harbor master at Cook's on Bailey Island.
And that, the idea is
More
that he's closer to the water,
Yeah.
and he can just jump in the boat and go when there's an emergency.
What do you do, where does the boat spend the predominant part of the summer?
So we keep it at the deputy harbor master's house, Greg Coyne. He lives in Gunpoint Creek.
Okay.
So he's pretty centralized, but
Sorry.
he's centralized for about as good as we're gonna get right now. But, as Greg has mentioned before, he's not gonna be here forever. At some point, he'd like to enjoy his life, and so we're not always gonna have that luxury. So we're trying to plan for the future at this point.
And it's a general service trend long-term anyway in the town. That, makes sense to me to head in that direction.
Absolutely.
And it does just help, because Greg and I don't always work the same days. The whole point is to provide coverage to the town 7 days a week, at least in the busy months. So just being able to be, when Greg is off, for me to leave the town office to go down Gunpoint Creek, to unravel the boat, to jump on and then go to Potts Point or whatever, for say, it's a huge delay in time.
We send him a quart of maple syrup at Christmas time.
Yeah,
Just don't hit Cox's.
So,
that's, don't hit it, that's right.
so after that discussion, Chris, you said you're looking into that, and it would be a pilot program, and will we see that somewhere?
I don't have a figure at this point for the committee to consider.
Okay. Thank you.
That's great.
And the mooring software, so we are changing vendors. The select board has agreed to go with a company called Linkslog. They're the other large mooring software company. Received numerous complaints that online mooring just isn't quite user-friendly, and I think I would probably tend to agree with that. Linkslog seems to provide a much more professional invoicing structure. And I'm a little more, and I don't know how the treasurer feels, but a little more impressed with how they can respond to funding, I guess, is,
And their ability for future growth
yeah, yes.
for different modules.
Having said that, you're changing it, but the expense is going down, or the request is going down from 2014.
Yes.
Is that because it's less expensive, or
Yep.
Well, I also think they were encouraging us to switch and change, so they were willing to do that.
And this is a one-year lease, right? We renew it every year? 3 year.
3 years.
So every year, we're being paying the 12,000?
It could
Be some fluctuation.
fluctuation, so they said, 10, 15 moorings, they're not gonna increase the fee to reflect that. If we're talking 100 moorings, either way, they're likely to say, yep, here's, a slight fee increase or decrease based on that.
And your information from the current system will be transported to the new system seamless.
It should be
seamlessly.
seamless. You shouldn't know, other than the email will be different than, it won't say online mooring, it'll say Linkslog.
does the vendor do that? Are they
The vendor does
responsible?
all of that.
That's great.
Great.
I assume they've done that before.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Numerous locations, right? Okay, so that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations.
Is that a
And when-
national company?
What's that?
Is Link's Law, is that what you call it?
Linkslog, yeah.
Is it a national company?
It is national. Yeah.
Was that a takeoff of Lincoln Logs, do you think?
Probably spelled differently.
So they used to be mooring info, if anyone ever heard of that.
Yeah.
And then they've kind of gone more into not just doing moorings, they do dog licenses, they do overnight camping passes, so they can kind of do it all.
That's great. I mean, less cost, better quality
Well, we
product.
have some other software that can do some of those things too, so we'll just have to explore the most efficient and effective way to
Yeah.
add on something.
At this cost, it is just for the mooring part of it.
And for shellfish, if
And
we
shell-
choose
If we
to,
choose to do it.
keep track of shellfish harvesters that way, we have been authorized to use the program for that.
But it does have the option for growth and purchasing of other modules.
Fantastic.
Madam Chair, just to,
Oh, yes.
prior to Paul's departure, would you be willing to jump ahead to 1650 and have him talk about, or actually, you don't even have to switch to the page, it's a $20,000 request for the marine hazards, and then to let you know the Cundy's Harbor Library representatives are here in the hallway.
Okay, so 1650, yes. And I was, yeah, we need to flip back in our books.
There we go. Special projects.
Item, item 1096 here, Marine Hazards Reserve, needs to go up. Or the request is for it to go up. And you want to remind everyone why.
So this year was, it was a unique year, but it's unpredictable. It started off the bat by January 20th, we'd expended almost the entire account because we had to clean up the town dock. We have since been notified that we'll be reimbursed for that amount to supply that account again, or refund that account. But then other things occurred, like we had a dead whale wash up in the Cripstone Bridge. So we couldn't just leave that. That was considered a public health hazard. We had a dead shark, large 15 to 20-foot shark wash up in Gunpoint Cove, right in front of someone's building complex. That was also considered public safety. It's just not a good.
What kind was it?
Basking shark is what DMR thought it was. So all these things just keep accumulating. They just keep adding up. And you never know. We've had vessels go down that we haven't been able to fund to remove. I'm not saying $20,000 would have even covered that, but it's good to have that reserve there, just because we can't predict what's going to happen year to year.
Would you treat this as a reserve account, meaning you'd carry this from year to year?
Yeah, so that's a good point. You'll see on your sheet that it appears to be overexpended because we are trying to track some things under that account. But we're not going to go to the select board and ask them to use contingency for that. We're waiting to see if we get our refund from FEMA within this calendar year and can offset some of those expenses. If not, we'll have to apply some over the balance that we had into another account to absorb that, because it is, you can't overexpend it, and without use of contingency, I should say, but the reserves. And so it will carry forward. As a matter of fact, the first year that was created, it didn't get used for several years. Small amounts it did, but maybe some of those things were being absorbed under Paul's budget. So we're trying to utilize this more and get a better, accurate accounting of marine hazards.
And if even though you get reimbursed on these, I assume there's a timing difference between the need to pay and the timing of getting reimbursed for that payment?
Right, and so as long as it's within the same year, we're okay. So we're hoping, this was one of the first claims that had been accepted by FEMA, so we make it.
Calendar year? Or?
Yeah, so it's within our fiscal year, which is calendar, yes.
Okay.
So, because if it
So
crosses.
if it happens toward the end of your fiscal year, then,
Right,
We just don't know.
yeah, you need this kind of an account.
right,
I
right.
get it, I get it.
Mackin.
Was the Jacob Pike part of your expenses?
Not other than staff time, no.
Time.
Took a
Lots
lot
of
of staff
time,
time,
lots of
lots of time.
What was that?
An all-seine boat that sank in New Meadows River
Oh, okay, yep, I did read about that.
came and was taken away.
But I
A lot of
know
time.
Paul was instrumental in keeping the Coast Guard informed.
Hours
and
of Coast Guard
And it
meetings.
went up the chain, so to speak, and finally got federal attention and federal dollars paid for its removal,
I know.
not local taxpayers.
Huh.
So it was a
No,
good end result,
It
but
was.
Yeah.
not typical for the way
Correct.
those situations are handled.
Nothing. was
How's
different.
the Mitchell Field Park being handled? Is there any reimbursement for that one?
The land side arc,
Yeah, I don't know, it looks like an old post or something like that.
still trying to,
Find
Work.
an appropriate home for
yeah,
it.
yeah, or work with the owner. The owner it'd be great if the owner would come and take it. But
Hold your breath on that one.
if he doesn't, we'll go through the court process.
So I have a question. This is in special projects because it's a new account? It feels, because it's, so why is it not under reserves? I'm just kind of. or
Well,
under-
it's not a capital reserve, so we tend to we have capital reserves and we have special
Yeah.
projects, but kind of like the other one in that area, we self-insure for unemployment. So they're kind of the more odd they either are expected to be used or will be continuing reserves that aren't really capital related.
I was surprised to see it here and not under his budget.
Again, because his budget is operations, it won't
Only
won't carry forward. So our 1650 and our 9200 can be reserves that carry forward.
Because I knew this was coming, having attended a meeting where it was discussed. Okay. So we've had that explained to us. Are we done with Paul? Thank you so much
Okay,
for your
thank
time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Great.
Yeah, of course.
Yes, and before they speak, can someone fix this heater over here?
It's getting cold.
I'm freezing.
You need more.
Well, I turned it on, I thought, but it's not, nothing's happening.
That's because
Yeah, I pressed that.
All right.
It won't run as long as you're holding it.
it's got a thing on the bottom.
You're probably going to have to vote.
Yep.
We blow it.
Doesn't feel like it's doing anything. It isn't.
Okay, where are we?
You're the special guest, Heather.
Why am I a special guest? Freezing.
Yes, we have. Why? That's why we have rooms, because we
God,
have,
Terry, is there anything you don't do?
we have the best rooms.
Aha.
I gotta go grab something.
That's better.
Oh, and Mac, I've got a book.
Do I have it not situated? I want it to hit both of you. How far will you rotate?
Turn it.
I said, I think that's the harbor master, and if so, there's so much, right? Yeah.
So you
Yes,
I had just about everything except for that.
yes.
You decide it's not working.
Yeah,
Oh, I see
we're-
it rotating. Oh, wow.
it was
We
a
had to
break.
change the plug of.
The break is gone.
Thank you so much. I was freezing.
My hands are cold.
I think they just want,
We've lost
answer their
a
question.
third of our committee.
No, you didn't. He's on the end.
I know, but we lost Megan too.
We are
No,
still
he's
recording.
coming, he's coming.
Calendar department.
Oh, and Mackin, I have your book. Your book is in. Magic Mountain, it's in.
Of the population.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
What we're paying, all these their salaries.
Okay, I'd like to get the committee's attention down at the end of the table. Down at the end of the table.
David.
I don't have anything, so. I don't even have what we asked for.
I need a gavel sometimes.
I did it for you.
No, I don't care. She's the one who was
So,
second. Okay, I just have a number.
Oh, so it was the outlet.
what happened to my 6,000?
Okay.
6,000.
Here it is. Yeah, I got it.
Money is money. Oh, there's your money. Our narrative, oh, go ahead and look at our narrative. Hello, I'm Heather Logan, and I run the Cundy's Harbor Library. And this is Ruth Rose, who is our new treasurer of the Cundy's Harbor Library.
Hey, Ruth.
So we wanted you to talk to us a bit about the extra 5,000 that you're asking for this year and what the plans are.
Okay, so we have, since last year, we have increased our readership, our books, and those things, but also utilities has gone up quite a bit, and we've increased our hours and our involvement in the town. So now we are actively and officially affiliated with Harpswell Heritage Land Trust. We do events with them. We just did a reading one down at the Historical Society. So it's covering some of those things in the community that we are actually going out and doing with the Recreation Department. We're doing stuff with the school now. So it's some of those things. And what else did I say back in the day? And we have computers and printers that are at the end of their time. And so that's the other thing that we're anticipating. I mean, I've got one computer that just loves to freeze. And one of them needs to be replaced for patrons because, and I'd like to get a tablet because I'm finding that the computer, the laptop is just too much for them. And so if I have a tablet, then it's much easier. A lot of them are using iPads. And we have people who come in for insurance. So like after the last flood, we had people in faxing and contacting and doing FaceTime and Zooming with insurance people. There were 5 people that did that. I don't know how they did, but anyway. And then we've had people come in for medical. They've got to go on and either book a medical appointment or do a medical appointment online. So they come in and they need a little bit of help because they can't get on or whatever. And so I have been finding I've been using my own personal iPad to help them to get on so they can get their appointments made so they can go to the dentist and the doctor and all of those things. And then we're also active now in Harpswell Lunch with Friends. So those are some of the things that we will be needing to do.
To what extent are you pushing on the private fundraising lever to meet your additional funding needs?
That's the majority of it.
So of your total budget, what percentage comes from the town versus other sources?
We do, I know that last year we received 18,000. And the year before, we actually did a little bit better. And this year, we've just started our campaign. Thank you, Mac. And so where are we at with it?
With the new campaign hasn't really kicked off yet, but our budget for it is 25,000. So it's still, the town money is still better than half of the total annual budget, for sure. And the other piece of this that I wanted to speak to, because Heather won't, or shouldn't, is as the board, from the board's standpoint, we really want to build up our, how we take care of staff. So yes, that's Heather, that's David. The pay that they receive is pretty nominal, to say the least. And between, trying to bring those wages up a little bit and expanding the hours that the library's open to enhance the service to the community. But we want to take care of our people. And, to an extent at least, that takes money. So.
Are your pay scales similar to the other libraries?
Do you know any kind of, yeah?
Do you have any
I know that they're.
metrics?
We're much lower.
Yeah.
Compared to libraries of that
So
size.
the
I wouldn't
size-
compare you to
so
Curtis.
the libraries that I did every 5 years, the main library system sends out the results of a 5-year annual report summary. And so what I did was I did a comparison between municipal libraries, ours, Freeport, Denmark, because they are comparable to us. And we actually, our pay is lower. And then when I looked at the services that we provided, we actually provide a whole lot more. So, and also, we are the only library, we're quite lucky. David has a master's in library science. So we actually have a librarian, so that's another thing.
Do you ask for reimbursement from any of the people you're providing services for,
No.
or some kind of a emolument?
I think occasionally there are
Donations,
donations made.
like
in
for the
things, but-
annual town meeting, we provide the coffee and the baked goods because.
Town meeting?
Yes, annual town meeting, we provide.
Harpswell's town meeting?
Yep,
Okay.
we provide that because I think it's important to have coffee and something to eat while we're raising our little
I hope you're
thingies.
selling it.
No, we don't sell it.
Wow.
But maybe you should.
Well, you know what,
I gotta
yeah,
go
but
more.
we put out
I hate the cookies.
donations, we put out a donation jar, and it covers the cost of the coffee and the baked goods, but it's more of a.
Service.
That's a service for the community, and that's something we figured out that for Cundy's Harbor, we're not a drive-by library, we're a real destination, and we're really trying to meet community needs. So for us to do some of that, it raises our visibility. So, we've done some book sales, but that's not doing it anymore.
Yeah. Do you, I know a few years back, there was this talk of some sort of interlibrary loan system that you might become part of. I don't think that really hit the ground, if I understand.
Oh, Mills, yeah, no,
Um,
it didn't.
Are you looking at being part of Minerva?
We are part of Minerva.
Yeah.
We are, so let me
So
explain.
if I wanted a book.
You can come to my library and you
No, no,
can
no, no,
get
no.
it.
No, okay, if I go on Minerva.
Yeah.
Will I see Cundy's Harbor Library listed as a source of a book?
No, because we're on Library World, because our collection is not large enough
Okay,
for Minerva.
okay.
But if you wanted something on Minerva.
I know, okay. Yeah, I use Minerva all the time, but I hadn't seen Cundy's Harbor Library. So when you say you're on Minerva, you get books through Minerva, but you, through Curtis
Or Portland.
or Portland. Okay. So it's
Because
not,
anybody in Cumberland County can use the Portland Library for free as well and have a card.
all right.
So we do both of those.
But, yeah, I go on Minerva and I say, I want to see this book, or who has this book? I don't see Cundy's Harbor.
Right.
So if you had the book, I wouldn't.
And that's the same thing with oars. They don't have a
Right.
big enough collection. You have to have
Certain
like
size.
10,000 books
Yeah.
or something. And we don't have that many books.
Okay, okay.
So,
And,
Yep, sorry, Mac, and go ahead.
sort of thinking about the future a little bit, you have a big jump in your revenue forecast, 40,000 to 61,000, that's in terms of percentage. How confident are you that you can really achieve that? And that you won't come back with a request for 35,000 next year or 40,000 or some
It
number?
already is that.
Our request is 30.
our
I
request
know
is
it is
35.
now. I'm looking out into the future because of what you're forecasting with your 25 budget.
Well, first, my major thing is I'm trying to replace our hardware, our computers this year. And that means I won't have to do that for hopefully another 3 years. And our printers are
Got it.
4 years old and they're starting to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's mostly that tech replacement stuff.
And how much then is the bringing staff pay up to a par number?
We won't get there in one jump,
No.
but we're probably looking at roughly 2,000 to 3,000 per year until we get to that point. But we've got to work with those survey results and see
That's 2 of the
where they
30.
really need to be.
So the
Yeah.
extra 5,000, I mean, there was a lot of things you listed.
Yeah.
Would 3,000 of that be going toward salaries or
It's roughly
wages?
50/50.
50/50?
Yeah, between,
Because I heard equipment.
yeah. some of that's was already in the budget.
Okay.
So the increase is about 50/50 between boosting salaries and.
But you're hoping for 25,000 in fundraising.
Right.
And is your fiscal year the same as ours?
Calendar year.
Calendar, which is what we are.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
So that would be 2025 that you're hoping for that.
Yep. So since last year, we changed our hours, so we're Wednesdays through Saturdays, consecutive days. And it isn't, we've had at least 20% increase in patron use because we're open.
Uh-huh.
And so we've had requests to open for another day, and we're like, well, we'll look at that, but there is now more interest in that. And I think some of it had to do with at the annual meeting, the town meeting, people got up and said, we want the libraries open, we want them to do more and more and more. So we responded with doing it, and they used it. They've come, and they've been using our libraries more. So I think that's been a good thing, too, because we have a lot more new card holders and more people using the library. And last year, we started a book club, and now I've had to add a second section to the book club, so, and we've never had a book club before, so that's been a fantastic thing. And now we have had a request for a mother's club, for mothers who are working remotely would like to be able to come in. And then they want to learn how to knit, and thank goodness she knows how to knit, so we've had a request for a knitting club. So we're trying to figure out how to accommodate people wanting to use our library and our library space and services more. So if you ask, I guess they'll come. So we're trying to anticipate what it's going to take. And hopefully, if we have more people using the library and more volunteers, and we have a larger board now, that more people will realize what a gem
Yep.
the libraries are in Harpswell, because they are amazing.
With your card hold, how many card holders do you have? You said you had a huge increase. Oh, so-
Is it in there?
367. Yeah,
Say it again.
And
367.
And do you keep track of how many of those are active or used in a year?
yes, we do. We keep,
So all 367 or,
it's 90% of them, somebody's taking out a book once.
okay.
And it gets skewed because we have summer residents. So we've got some people that only
Come in the summer?
come in the summer.
Well, but they used it once, at
Yeah.
least, yeah.
Yeah.
Jane, did you have something?
Yes, thank you both. I was curious when I looked at your front sheet that you talk about 2 volunteers. Is that correct?
At the time that I did this, it was correct. We only had 2 volunteers.
And you're not considering the board volunteers?
No.
Jane, I didn't hear your question.
I was curious that it was 2 because there is a board and a larger board. And I said,
There's a
do
what?
you not consider,
Board.
do you
I did
not
not
consider the board?
Oh,
I'd have to
As
volunteers.
look at the
volunteers.
bylaws, but I didn't see that the volunteers,
Good, but I think.
the board was considered friends, volunteers, I don't.
Okay, yeah, just that clarifies.
But now we
it.
have more. We actually now have 5 volunteers. So,
That's good to hear, because with the addition of the activities you're talking about, sustaining it will require volunteers, obviously.
and our board went from 4 to 7. So now we have a full board, which we didn't have before this year.
And Heather, you have a generator there now, so if
Yes.
people in the community needed to go to a public space to stay warm or have, plug in their devices.
Oh, yeah,
You can
and we're-
accommodate that, should that need arise.
And then we have, one of our board members lives in the harbor, and when that happens, he comes right down and opens up
Opens up.
the place so that people can be there and charge their devices and be there and do those things.
It's huge.
Oh, it is huge. It's really huge. We don't have a kitchen, so we can't cook or whatever, but we have crackers. And a microwave and a coffee machine, so that's kind
That's
of.
all you need.
Yeah, so that's, yeah, so you're right, when it goes out, we do that. Because the other thing is our internet, don't ask me how this works, but it is out of the main library system. So we're not on Comcast or any of that. So our internet often will be working when nobody else is working.
Huh.
And if it's not working, Orono calls us and says, your internet is down. Don't know how that works.
So
Interesting.
If my math is right, somebody should probably check this, maybe Matt can just, will do that. The request from the town is an approximate 16% increase year
Yes.
over year. Your annual fundraising goal mirrors that almost exactly, going from 20 to 23. Is that an accident, or, and how do
No.
you feel about that mix? Would you, how hard are you pressing on the fundraising side of things to increase that?
It's a goal we intend to hit. So our fundraising letter is going out later this week. Because we're on a calendar year and a lot of people do year-end giving, we'll see a lot of that come in this calendar year. But depending on what goes over into 25, then of course there's next year's fundraising. But that's a target, like I said, that we intend to hit. So if there are extra things that we need to do next year in order to hit that number, we have every intention of doing that.
Do you guys share ideas with respect to that kind of activity with ORS or
Oh,
any
yeah, I
of the
meet
other
with
local
Oars
institutions?
I go over to Oars Island at least twice a month, and Ann and I and Dan get together and we talk a great deal about fundraising, about books, how do book sales go, what can we do. We've got some kids' projects that we do together. Because we realize we are a different group, but a lot of things we have in common. And then I have been helping with the main library standards because the NEC wants to have a library. So I go over and I say, okay, here are all the standards you have to have, which is eye-opening, needless to say, of what you got to do. And then both Ann and I are members of like the Rural and Small Libraries Association, which is nationwide. So if she goes to a conference or I do, or we do a Zoom meeting, then we talk about what the ramifications of that are. And so we're together quite a bit because we know we're stronger together.
Yeah.
And we share books back and forth. So sometimes she's borrowed books from me and I'll borrow books from her because I can get onto her database for her books because she's too small to get onto Minerva.
Minerva also.
They're not interested. And we don't really want to pay $6,000 to join Minerva.
Oh, is
That's
that
a
what it is?
Oh, yeah, it's just wow. We just go, wow. And we've talked about maybe together we could band together and be one to do Minerva, but still, that's expensive. And so we have our little inexpensive databases. So I'm on Library World and she's on Bibliotheque or something. So I can give her books and she can give me books. And then we just run them back and forth to each other for patrons. Or if it's from Portland, we figure out who's going down to Portland and we get them from Portland and bring them back up. Or we have somebody who goes to Curtis and brings them back and forth. And she'll call and say, I've got a whole bunch of books here from Curtis that got dropped off. And so I might drop them there or drop them out here for her. So that's how we work.
So Portland's part of Minerva.
Right.
So, and you can get books from Minerva, if I understood that right.
Yep.
So they would not, you have to send somebody to Portland to get them? They wouldn't?
It has to do with van service.
And
So with the Mills thing, that was paying for a van to deliver books to the libraries.
Okay, but so Portland would not send them to you because
Oh, they do.
They,
They'll
you said you
mail
would-
them.
okay.
But if I want it
don't know
real-
how they get to Curtis, but they get.
Oh, they,
I know
Curtis is-
they've.
They have a van service
Yes.
that is 6 days. It's amazing. They have
Oh,
6
I know
days.
it's amazing. I use it.
AM and PM. So that's why the quick turnover for them, and we're on their van service.
How is your physical plant, building, the heating?
Oh, we have
system,
renovated that whole entire thing for the last 3.5 years.
Roof and everything else. So
Thank you, town. Oh, what a project.
you're good to go.
I mean, from a damp, leaking basement to a sagging back, to a roof, to a chimney, to a parking lot, to drainage, to sewage, it's all been fixed. And we just finished cleaning out the whole back part of our lawn so you can look completely out onto the harbor. And then the other thing we provide for our community, because the community asked for this, we provide 24/7 live camera. So if you go to our website, you can see the lot, if your boat's on its mooring, what's going on, going down the New Meadows and up. And it also helps because then people who are out, waiting for their people to come back in, they can see when they've landed, when they're coming in. And they don't have to stay on the boat in some of that rough weather because they can watch it from their home now. So we did that because Matt Gilley wanted us to do it. So I said, I can do that for you. And so we were able to do it. And the person that installed it donated the monthly service fee.
That's great.
So we get probably, if you want to ask collection, we get about 370 to 80 hits per month from that live cam for people going on it.
It's interesting.
My impression, and I'm new to this subject of Cundy's Harbor Library, is that you guys do a lot with a little.
We do. When I did that, the 5-year comparison, we had the lease coming in, we don't have an endowment, and we were doing so many things. But then, I'm from here, so I just want it to work, so.
Good for you.
And so is Ruth. So, but that, because we're not a destination, and there's not much reason to go down there unless you're a working waterfront person, we realized what we had to give was our expertise to all the other nonprofits. And then we started the Working Waterfront series, and we started doing some of those things. And we were meeting a big need that we didn't realize was there. So we've kept doing it.
So your insurance budget is flat, actually down a little bit.
Yeah.
That's not realistic in today's world.
We haven't seen a quote for next year. It's possible
Okay.
that was, yeah.
Yeah. And do you get insurance through a group, a library group, or something?
No,
I don't know
I
that
don't
part.
believe so.
I don't
It's a
think
direct
so.
policy through, I forget who it's through.
Might be,
It's a what kind of policy?
Well, we're talking property liability.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't have all the details memorized.
No, I
I just stepped
understand.
into the treasurer's role about a month ago, so forgive me a little bit here. But
We'll give you another week.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
But yeah, and in fact, the next year's budget had already been developed when I came aboard as well. So, but I know that, they're round numbers, and some things will come in a little high and some things will come in a little low, and.
we just
and,
completed a discussion of the January storms.
Yeah, yeah, that's a big one, and we hope doesn't repeat.
But going back to
Yeah.
Heather, your comments about Orr's Island and things you're doing with them, do you combine on various common expenses, like insurance? You all-
No,
No.
Or maintenance, things like
Yeah.
that.
no, we've
Is that a
never, I
worthwhile-
don't think we've ever even wrapped our heads around that, thinking,
Another
Might be
step.
worth looking at. Sometimes you can get a better
I mean, we-
deal with a slightly larger premium.
let's go here. It's been great for the last 2 years, and I have really made a commitment to forge a cooperative relationship together to provide for people and share books and share ideas and be committed and share our expertise. So it's been new. We haven't gotten to the part where, and to be honest, that's why we have these people, because we're all about we're going to make these backpacks and we're going to do this and we're going to make these bookmarks and we're going to do all that. But combining for insurance, no, I don't even think about that.
They might need to consider you as one entity or something.
Well, I'd suggest we
I've
have
thought
that
about, I have
conversation.
thought that, it might be a really good thing if we had harps. I've actually talked to Dan and I've talked to Ann about it. If we had a overall library, Harpswell Library with our branches.
Good.
And then we coordinated, because we did talk about, well, if we did that, maybe we could afford to get on to Minerva. And then we're like, oh, that's a lot of money.
No, but that's the right kind of discussion.
Minerva's fantastic.
It may not be
I use
for
it every
more, but
week.
it could be for more backpacks, right?
No, and I think that's where Ann and I came together, is how do you feel about a library? What do you think about your library and your community and your library and your community, and how can we stretch our bucks and do it? But financially, well, let's face it, both of us haven't really had, in the past, some treasury issues. So now we are gung-ho that we want to, we really want to do something. And we've worked with the bookmobile, and that's why I keep trying to help the neck people, because they're bound and determined they're going to have something. But if they're going to, they have to know the rules. You can't just, I keep saying, maybe you just want a telling room. I don't know. So that is something that I had thought about for a long time, is if it could be more coordinated. Because to be honest with you, I have people that come over from Ors and Bailey Island and from the Neck that use our library all the time. I have a volunteer that comes over from the Neck to volunteer. And then there are people from the Cundy's Harbor that go over to Ors and use Ors. So people are using all of our libraries, and Curtis and Topsom, because the kids from Cundy's Harbor and Harpswell tend to use the Topsom library because they go to Saginaw County to school, so they get a Topsom library card.
Right, they can. Yep.
So it just gets very complicated.
Well, this is all music, and it's
Okay.
great.
But we are really open to being as lean and mean and give as much back to this town, because we know it's important. And Ors is really willing to work with us, and we're really willing to work with Ors.
Thank you.
Well, I just have a concern that, we see the request from Curtis each year. We would see the request from the other two libraries and yours, and it's in aggregate turning into a fairly large number, which eventually people are going to start pushing back against, perhaps.
I don't know, and in anticipation of that, because I hear that, that's why I also met with Portland and said, what exactly, as a Cumberland County library, that's our area person, and that's our area library. And so we have an institutional library card there, and we've always had it there. We could always, anybody can come get one, and then have complete access to the 48 libraries that they have access to, including Maine Medical. So it's like, we have a lot of options. It's just siloed. So I've been trying to figure out, how do we get it all together so that if you get a Portland library card, is that going to work for you? So I've got people that go down to like Peaks Island for the summer. So they all have Portland cards. Because when they go down there, they got it from us, but they go down there and they can use their Peaks Island card because that's part of the Portland library system. So,
It's great.
Thank you so much for
Yep.
coming in and talking to us.
Yeah,
well, thanks for letting me come in.
very informative.
Both of you, thank you.
Yep. So, back on our agenda,
Yeah, where are we?
We're, I think we're on 6410, recreation.
Madam Chair, did you want to go back to 3100 law enforcement?
Yeah, let's go back.
You,
Oh, we did skip that, thank you.
Small number there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, just 1 second, please. Gotta find it.
All right. Going back to,
Okay.
Do you know, is everybody on this page now? I was just kind of on vacation and holidays and so forth. Is that not sure what the right term is, but the longer you've been there, escalating? Like the longer you've been there, the more vacation days you get kind of system?
You know, I'm not that familiar with their union contract, but I'm sure this is pursuant to that bargaining agreement. So this contract that Harpswell has it covers 3 full-time deputies with benefits and compensation time, et cetera. And that's where the bulk of the cost is.
Right.
Personnel area.
Right.
And this budget doesn't reflect any change in the intensity of the usage of Cumberland?
No.
This is literally
The
just
same
apples to
number
apples
of
cost.
personnel folks working. They're estimating a 4% COLA. They are not proposing that we purchase a vehicle under this contract.
you may recall a big difference between this one and the Marine is we don't backfill the
Right.
days that the Marine wardens are off, but obviously we do backfill the law enforcement.
That's a good point.
Right. And the 4% COLA for them is their, probably their contract.
I think, I don't know if they've negotiated that yet. They're calling it estimated. so.
Oh, okay.
So the COLA is 4%, and presumably the rest is benefits?
Yep. Well, it's not just benefits, there's
Health
Well, I'm looking at
uniforms.
7.6%.
Oh,
It was the contract labor, that first line, 1007.
no, it includes everything on this sheet, Dave. On this sheet. Which it includes uniforms and fuel and so forth.
And
I
the
think
body cam
I
is-
looked at this comparatively to last year's, and I think I saw a big jump in the health insurance area, but I'd have to double check that.
Okay.
Well, that triggered my question to the library about insurance.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that body cam, is that an annual subscription service or something?
It could be.
It's huge.
Could be.
I'm sorry, where are you, body cam?
Under
Second from the-
operational costs, there's
Second from the
taser
bottom.
and body worn camera. They're all
Oh, yes,
carrying
yes,
those.
yes. Is that new?
I think
No.
they may have received grants initially for body cameras, but I think this could be more of the software aspect or
Yeah.
some type of,
I mean, not to make light of those, but
a beating,
those are puny numbers compared to the
Literally.
oh, right,
This is
yeah,
all-
yeah, yeah.
this is all
The
benefits,
personnel
right?
cost is huge, yeah.
Yes.
Is there any way to, make sure you guys pulled your hair out over this, is there any way to manage this number to a lower number,
No.
less coverage?
I mean, I really think if you look at it from a contract standpoint, it's pretty good value. We don't have our own police chief, we don't, this is
Yeah.
kind of, this is supplemental service, because we do get some coverage from our general county contract, but we're on the far end of Cumberland County. Deputies are not going to drive through Cumberland County, on any kind of regular basis. So Harpswell has had dedicated, contractual arrangements for a long period of time.
But just to,
Yeah, I mean, 7%, 1 is a pretty healthy increase. There's 7.6 on those. And it's on a big base, right? So over time, this number becomes of greater and greater consequence in the context of the overall budget. I don't have a solution, and I'm not trying to imply that we should do it ourselves. I'm saying, is there any way to manage this number to a different outcome, either today or long-term?
It's,
I think other smaller towns in Maine are having trouble recruiting law enforcement. So this arrangement with Cumberland County has worked out well. They take all responsibility for recruiting, training, having policies for use of force. I mean, you get into a lot of issues if you start thinking about taking it on yourself. And if you don't want to work with your county partner, you know, Brunswick is not interested in us collaborating. Their taxpayers are paying for their Brunswick service. So there's not a whole lot of ability to be creative here and coming up with some different model. But I think many towns have gone to the kind of model that we have when their departments, they can't really find people to staff their own departments, especially these smaller towns.
And actually, at one point, we were even greater. We actually used to have a contract for a summer additional person, and so costs were reviewed at that time. At the same time, they were having difficulty filling that summer position because it was a school officer, and then the summer was available. So this used to be greater, obviously minus the increases if you're comparing apples to apples, but we did cut that 4th summer patrol officer off the contract, but
and Marge has a,
Coming from the county side of life, this is a very
you
good
got to
bargain.
speak into the microphone.
Coming from the county side of life, this is a great bargain. This is a really great bargain. You can't even, the coverage that they provide and their response time and all of the training, all the equipment, it's a great bargain.
Mackin?
It's just my only question, this was rhetorical, because I don't really, certainly no expert here, is that this is a big base and the number's going up, and
And we have no control.
and we have very little
Right.
control over this. And, you know,
The alternative
we
is
focus a
worse.
lot of
It's
time and
not-
attention on $30,000 budgets or $32,000 budgets, and here's a $500,000 budget. And there may not be a better solution. You guys have sat here a lot longer
Right.
than I have, but
But you can't even begin
it's a
to
hard
do
one. Every
this
time I get,
yourself.
what's that?
We couldn't even begin to do this for this cost if you chose to eliminate them and start. There was no way.
And, you know, and I remember the years, and others here too, before we had fire coverage help, paid firemen people. And so we've got an EMS garage now that we didn't used to have. We've got paramedics that we're paying for now that we didn't used to have. It was all volunteer, and it's not anymore. And you do something like this, you'd have to have a police station.
Oh, yeah, no.
And all that.
So
We have a great
my-
population. The population increase greater than what she's talking about.
Right. Mackin?
So my question, comment keys off both what we've just said, but Terry, you have made a couple of references over recent years that new people in town, you know, coming from other places with more intense police, fire services are driving up costs. And we're struggling to figure out how to manage this. Are we seeing anything here in this budget that people are making more demands on law enforcement for this or that?
they may be making more demands, but that's not changing our contract.
Oh, I understand that.
Right, so, I mean, people moving in or increase in population period is increasing all of our services, the need for all of our services.
And perhaps the intensity of our services as well. That is a real change.
And that's why we used to have that summer one, because summertime, we definitely experience, our population increases and call volume would increase. but they have managed.
Yeah, one of the ways we've dealt with that issue is the Marine wardens are deputized, so they can help respond in any and all law enforcement situations, which is a plus and a bonus.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, we have 5
Yeah.
if needed, but, well, not, they're not all on duty at the
Right,
same time.
right.
Now, one thing we used to get, but it's small potatoes, I think, compared to what we're talking about. We used to get a report on traffic stops or something like that.
We can get that for
Speeding,
you.
speeding.
Yeah.
That's when we paid for specific speed details, and then they were, we can't buy specific speed details due to the shortage.
I was
being
gonna,
able to
that was my
staff
next
those.
question.
But our regular ones were doing some speed details, and I just don't know if they were able to conduct any in 2024.
Yeah, they've been doing speed details during their regular shifts, and we get information about those speed
Okay.
details.
And I can ask an interesting question about the intensity of usage. Is there some way for us to see what that looks like? Because that may say a lot about the future and our expectation for the intensity of the usage
not
of this
just-
particular
They have-
budget item, right?
The data's in the town report every
Okay.
year, broken
Yeah.
down by category.
So all my neighbors are in there for all the things that they've done wrong.
No names.
There's no names.
Just data points.
How many times do they go down your road?
Not very often. Thank
Well, it's
you.
part of the thrust of a number of my questions through these various budget lines, that trying to look at the future. And what can we expect?
Well, as our, we're in a good spot, I think. We have a lot of summer people who help us pay our taxes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And,
lucky.
and also have some valuable homes on the water.
That's right.
That are paying more taxes.
Yeah.
But they're only here half the year, or less than half the year. So,
Which creates less of a demand on the services.
right. If only we could
Yeah.
have these guys take their vacation in January
Yeah.
or something.
Yeah, we can know.
Okay.
But that data, we'll all look in our town report for that data from last year. Thank you. Jane, did you have something?
No, I just said the same thing, that it's in the town report.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, back to the agenda, we were, recreation programs, which is programs is 6410, and after that, several accounts. Now, in my book, it's 6420.
So 6420 is our town department,
Okay.
and then the rec programs, 6410 is Trufen. Every year we have this, and I wish I could reverse the numbers, but 6410 is Trufen Somerton Ball Field, which is considered under the program area. So,
I don't have anything for that.
I don't have,
so flip to the one after 6420. After 6420, then you'll see
Okay, so that's
6410 through
Oh, I
6498.
see. Okay, yeah.
except it's
Mine says-
6430 to 6499
I don't have
in my book.
6410.
you have
No,
6430.
switch to 6430, the one
Okay.
right after 6420.
Got it. It's there. Yeah.
That's all our, oh, and there's Trufant Somerton
And-
Field,
Right. So,
which is the 6410.
right. So anyways,
Very confusing.
what I handed out to you today, and Dave was here last year, okay. So, just by refresher, rec programs, that is its special revenue fund. So voters approved many years ago that the funds received and raised, and less the expenses, would stay in this special revenue fund for recreation. So you'll notice on that summary sheet, we don't show you expenses, because the sheets I handed out to you today show you each account, the amount that was appropriated, expenses, revenue, and that's how the rec department's kind of evaluating what's working, what's not, what changes may need to be in there, or what they know is going to go in the hole, if you will. And so everything that is raised and appropriated in here remains in this fund, and at the end of the year, If there's a surplus, it carries forward in the special revenue fund. If there's a deficit, then the special revenue fund is reduced and carried forward. Truth-Somerton itself, cuts into that carryover quite a bit every year. So this is for operations. You don't have to have a special permission for.
Slow down. Where are you? I don't, in this?
I'm just talking generally all those sheets.
Okay, I don't see, the first one I have listed there is baseball.
Your top sheet you just flipped over is for Truth-Somerton.
Okay, it doesn't, it says TS Field.
It does say 6410 as well.
Oh,
So that first sheet, and then
Okay.
each page thereafter is in numeric order about each program. I guess what I'm saying is you don't necessarily have to take time to review this right now, just understanding that everything remains in this fund, whether it's a fund total reduction or increase for the following year.
okay. So there's a big
and-
deficit with
I'm sorry? Yes, with Truth-Somerton.
Okay.
And so operational, there's no special vote or requirement to use the carryover. It's for operations, it will just either reduce or increase the carryover. But if there's special projects that are for capital or for something new, a one-time thing that you're not going to fund through appropriations, the Recreation Committee needs to review such a request, and then the Select Board ultimately give approval for use of the carryover. I'm bringing that up because that's leading me into the fact that a request that came in after this budget was put together was for twofold, two items here, is a very large apron paving to the entrance to Truth-Somerton Ball Field. If you all have gone in there for a hike or for some of the events that are held over there, there's that slight hill as you approach it, and it really erodes out every single year, and the water runoff. And so the rec director, whom you're going to hear about under 6420, who recently moved on, is recommending, and the committee recommended, and an estimate was received for paving this apron, very deep apron, if you will, part of it, at Truth-Somerton Ball Field, which is at a total cost of $10,100, but because the land trust also has a trail there and uses that, they have put in their budget $5,000 to go towards that project next year. So the request from the committee is to raise and appropriate $5,100 for the rest of that cost for the Truth-Somerton paving. That needs to be added.
So where is that? We should just add
Not on
that?
it.
It's not on here because
But we should add it.
It's being asked if you would add that, yes.
So the 2,000 goes up to 7,100.
7,100, yeah.
Correct.
So in that vein of discussion, where does the $15,000 for the Giant Steps Trail go? We saw that earlier discussion.
The 15th, under town landings?
Yeah,
I think we fixed the
We
trail.
did that this year.
Fixed the trail and
done.
then.
okay, I'm just talking about the accounting for it, because
Oh,
it would strike me.
That's under town landings. So town landings is all of our town properties excluding Mitchell Field
I see.
and Truth-Somerton.
Okay.
Truth-Somerton is part of the special recreation revenue, special fund. And that was, they tried to always keep that cost low there because when volunteers built the field,
It was great.
it was hoped that the sign revenue and that actual raise and appropriates could be very minimal to the taxpayer. But
It's
life
not
changes
keeping up,
and
yeah.
it's not keeping up. And so, so that's one request before you. And then at the same time, and I know this will get more convoluted, Devil's Back, they are also recommending that an apron be paved there at Devil's Back as well.
Is that on lands?
And that's under the town lands, and so They were-
Didn't we already do town lands?
So they were earlier with Paul here.
Yeah.
But I'm bringing it up now because I need to come back to you at next week's meeting about that, because the recommendation from the committee was the 5,100 be raised and appropriated for Truth Somerton, but the 5,400 for Devil's Back come from carryover. Another property can't come from that carryover. It has to be the special revenue fund. So I need to go back to the committee and tell them they need to reverse, probably raise and appropriate 5,400 for Devil's Back and use from the carryover of 5,100. I just wanted to mention it to you today while we're talking about that. If that's the case, there'll be no change to the rec programs.
Oh.
Because then the 5,100 may come from, but there would be a change to the town landings budget. So
Okay.
please
But
stay
you're going
tuned.
to talk to us about that next week, some more.
Paul introduced it today, but you don't usually do consensus on an item until the week later, so I would like the reservation to discuss town landings next week.
At the beginning, before we do consensus.
Please.
Thank you. So, okay, so what you're proposing, nothing on our page, whatever page this is going to change from what's listed here.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So now, if we go back to 6420,
Are we doing 64?
aren't we doing 6420?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So, and you wanted to talk about, we have a change in
Personnel.
personnel there.
It didn't change the budget for next
Okay.
year, but I was mentioning that when we were talking about programs, because the paving came in from the committee and from the rec director at that time. We have an interim staffing plan right now. The assistant who, the program coordinator and another rec staff member, Tom Mahoney, they're kind of working simultaneously together right now while we're accepting applications and interviewing for a new rec director and community services coordinator. But so the rec department's budget is only changed by salaries and wages, and that was with the global 2.5%. And we will work through interviews and hopefully have a person for recommendation prior to year's end.
Great. So there wasn't anything specific on this that you wanted to point out to us? Any questions from the group? Okay, thank you. And the next item is account 1600 contingency. Give us a second to get there, Terry or Christie.
So contingency. Oh, I'm sorry.
But I only asked Terry for the second, so. Then I said, or Christie. Mackin, are you ready?
No, I can't, I have no.
1600.
I know.
1-6.
I hear you.
Oh, okay.
Do not have 1,600. Or if I do, I'm not seeing it. There it is. Come on. Okay.
So here we are, contingency. You know, that's something we have to look at every year, and we've provided you with a pretty extensive history here, going back to 2008. In 2024, it looks like we're going to be pushing potentially our $25,000 available funds. And I will tell you, a significant percentage of that is going to be coming from legal. We've had a lot of various legal issues come forward this past year, and it costs a lot of money to research these issues, to get advice from our attorney. So in the proposed budget for 2024, we've increased the legal budget from 50 to 65,000. But I can tell you right now that we're definitely going to be overexpended in legal in 2024. We're going to try to cover that overage by reducing some of our costs in general government, but there's only so much we can do there. So we are going to have to ask the select board, we know this, after December 31st to authorize use of contingency to cover legal, and we have a couple other areas, but they're fairly small in comparison to legal. So I just want to suggest that I do not now believe that 10,000 is going to be enough. When this is put together, it's, in October timeframe. We don't always know
And they're
exactly
months
where
behind.
things are going, and the billing from the law firm tends to be, a month or two backlog. So anyway, we really need to maintain that $25,000 level. So I'm going to recommend we put in another 15 here, so that it looks like we're going to use most of the 25,700 or 25,474 that's currently
So-
available.
It says for 20, forgive me, it says for 2025, 10,000.
Right, I want to add 15 to that. So
Okay,
that's a
so we're
total of
going to do 30.
25.
We're
Because
going to do
I
25.
anticipate
Okay.
that we're going to be using most, if not all of, or pretty close to the available contingency.
Christie, can you talk, at least categorically, about what is driving those legal expenses and whether that's likely to be
We
a
have that,
long-term
don't
trend?
Yeah, I think you have the
We have
sheet.
that way back at the beginning.
That, the legal
I
thing
saw it,
can
but I-
fluctuate based on issues that come before the town in any one year.
So there's nothing sort of systematic that's driving that?
Not really.
Not codes-related issues?
There were just a number of, there were more codes issues this year, so it's, you just mentioned that, and there were additional cases there. We had a public health case on Bailey Island that took a lot of legal resources. We have the derelict boat at Mitchell Field that is taking some legal resources. And you never can, we try to run an average in legal, and, the year of the water tower, we knew that was a one-off. But these others, you just, it's very complicated matters that have just really required. Generally speaking, on general questions, we can go to MMA under our membership and get general, and so all of our people that are authorized to use that when you can, but that's a question about interpreting the ordinance in one area, not these people split this lot here and there, and and so it's just, as Christy said, just can never really tell, but there have been an increase in codes and just public health,
Do you think
abandoned
there's
property.
anything in the nature of the town and how the town is changing that is likely to just increase the legal intensity, the intensity of the legal bills that we get? I know it's lumpy, but is your sense
Well-
is over time that this is going to become a bigger category?
You never know when you might have to defend yourself, or when you're a municipality, you never know.
Yeah.
But in those cases, maybe we'd have to have a special town meeting and appropriate more funding if we saw something like that happening.
Okay. Is 25,000 enough?
It meets our policy. We actually have a policy about how much to carry in contingency, and it's kind of based on usage. So, maybe that's going to need to be more at some point.
because again, you can't predict.
Right, I mean, nature of the
But
beast.
worst case, can you go to the general fund if you need more money? Or you have to get
You can-
approval from the town for that?
So legal is in the warrant article with general government.
Okay.
So anything in the general government, if we've underexpended somewhere, that will help, cover the overage. But when you get to the bottom line on December 31st, and sometimes it takes a little bit later because you got to get all your bills for the fiscal year, we know right now it's going to be over. We kind of have an idea of what that number's going to be. It's going to be over 15,000, we anticipate, if not more.
But Christie emailed the law firm asking to get up to date on the bills, and we're going to try to slow down some of these cases that can wait. We're trying our best to manage it, but there's just some things that can't wait, and so we're just telling you in advance, and the select board's been informed too during my treasurer reports that we are going to be using contingency this year.
Is it possible, that, based on that additional information, that this number might increase prior to the budget being finalized, the request? Or do you,
Possibly, but
okay.
I would feel fairly safe with 25 based on our history, but it's climbing. It's climbing here, and that does concern me. It really does.
When someone, I'm back on legal for a second, if someone challenges a codes decision, let's say, and legal has to get involved, and it's finally settled, do you recoup any of the legal
Well, there's a
expenses?
possibility to recoup, yes, in a,
If
there's
it's,
a consent agreement, there's a possibility of recouping. If we end up in court, there's a possibility of recouping. With our public health issue, the law allows you to recoup, but it doesn't specifically say how you can recoup. So there's some discussion about whether or not we actually have to go to court to recoup costs. So, it's kind of an archaic statute, and it doesn't really say the method that is considered appropriate for doing that. So, we just find ourselves in these kind of gray areas,
Rabbit holes.
sticky areas. We always try to be careful about involving legal. As Terry said, general legal questions can go to MMA, but the minute you start to have more specificity, they say, you need to talk to your own attorney about that particular situation or, the details around something. But we can get good general advice from MMA, and we do.
This comment goes back to what I asked you, Terry, about newer people coming from different places with more immediate expectations, more aggressive, more litigious, all the rest that goes so much of urban areas in the United States now. I'm wondering if you're beginning to see that.
I think we are in this area because as lots are very decrease in the ability for selling, there's more creative ways to try to figure out how to split and sell lots. That's creating some needs for our own attorney. There's some creative ways being brought forward on how to rebuild certain structures that don't necessarily meet the ordinance or the rules. And so it's really, the market's really pushing those two areas, the creativity.
Yeah, I think, to kind of play off of that, the value of the property is so substantial that, people who are purchasing, they tend to have the means to really push some of these issues.
That's right.
But I don't really like to characterize things.
No, generalizing
kind
is
of-
a bad idea.
Yeah,
that's
it's
not
right.
fair.
But
But the theme has come up numbers of times in our discussions.
We see that, not very frequently, but with the zoning board of appeals, it's taken to a different level. So you sort of feel the pulse a little bit that way. It's different. The stakes are higher.
Well, any way you can figure out ways to recoup. If you come and challenge, and if you lose, you have to pay the attorney's fees. I mean, that's pretty common practice in a number of
but
different.
that could go the other way, too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we did special projects when he was here, but we didn't go through them all. So we're going to go back. So 1650. Oh, boy. Ooh, oops. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I don't need it anymore.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
So what you see in front of you with regard to solar is a request that I received from the Energy and Technology Committee. And it came through the chair, Howard Marshall, basically suggesting that the town should hire someone with experience in the area of solar energy to advise the committee and the town on various options, looking at return on investment, siting, sizing, plans for maintenance, insurance, energy storage options, potentially. Kind of a multitude of issues, and suggesting that, there may be parking areas at the town office, the recycling center, potentially a new emergency services building where the town may want to look at how to best utilize solar. We've been talking a bit about on the roof of the recycling center and potentially maybe a new emergency services building, but, this suggests maybe there are some other things we should be looking at, ground-based arrays. So I don't have a lot of detail behind this. I do believe the chair talked to some people in this kind of consulting world and thought this was kind of an adequate amount of money, but I could get more detail on it or ask the chair to come to a future meeting if you'd like to proceed that way.
Christie, is this concept extending to the Mitchell Field idea?
I think it's kind of staying away from that based on the vote that
Yeah.
the town received.
Okay.
This is really looking more at this town campus area, for lack of a better term.
And the second question is, there are lots of ways to structure things like this, to create private-public partnerships.
Potentially.
Where it's an investment for people who participate, so the town isn't on the hook for the capital.
Potentially.
But so long as the consultant has some skill and experience in that, be wise.
There's also a pretty robust financing market, too. I don't think
Indeed.
financing is radically prohibitive as an option. Is the genesis of this request that they are somehow unhappy with the community solar participation? Where?
Oh, I think it also asks the town to look at that issue, you're right, about what we're currently in. But I think the committee has been asked to kind of weigh in or at least be aware of the recycling center project. And I think they don't feel like they have enough expertise to say what it's going to cost to put a solar array on the roof versus some other type of ground array. I mean, there's just a lot of possibilities, and you really need somebody who knows the solar industry to help guide you. Same thing, the Energy and Technology Committee was asked to kind of just take a look at the proposed concept plan for the Central Emergency Services Building. Similar kinds of things came up about efficiencies there, maybe solar panels. If solar panels, where? On the roof? In the parking area? I mean, just all kinds of ideas, but needing guidance to really help the town make some good decisions or good investments or good partnerships, whatever that might be.
Great.
Running through my mind is, did they get some of these solar people who provide this to come in and talk to them? And maybe, I see Jane nodding. And they just, because I was just thinking of my own home, if I wanted to do a solar array in my side yard or on my roof or something, I'd get somebody to come and talk, I'd get several come and talk to me and tell me what's possible. Did they do that, or? Without any cost?
Yeah. From what I know, which comes from discussions really in the RNS committee, or not, and discussions with.
I don't think that's on.
Is it on?
It is on.
These don't, oh,
That works.
No, that
Oops, sorry.
batteries.
Sorry.
That works.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Conversations with the chair of that committee, they have looked at solar in Harpswell for quite a number of years, a long time. And it's part of the general notion that the select board supports, that Harpswell reduce its carbon footprint. And they've kind of just gone around, they've talked to experts, but they've kind of looked at one option at a time. And now I think they're trying to pull a comparative analysis together to say, if we're going to put it in this area, which is land the town owns, property, buildings the town owns, what's the configuration that would make the most sense for us? So is it a combination of over the parking lot array, or is it on rooftops, or is it any other thing that the person has? So yes, I think they've done that, but they need a focused effort now that would look at what we have and what our options are.
Yeah,
Good.
I think I understood what Linda was saying.
Yeah.
Is this on? So,
Yeah.
was it, why are you paying for consultation? I've had 2 people out to my house, and they've consulted with me on solar for free.
Jane,
But-
you need to speak into the mic.
I thought it.
Yeah.
you can pull a torch and.
We have, just my own experience.
This Jane.
Yeah.
I
My
didn't
husband
hear-
and I
I
have
didn't
done-
hear what Jane said, so I want to
I'm
repeat
sorry.
it.
Just that I didn't think that you would have to pay for the consultation, because these people are trying to sell you solar panels.
That's an issue. They're looking for someone who's not trying to sell us anything. And it is what's the word? What's most cost-effective in terms of option A, option B, rooftop versus over a parking lot? What's the payback? What's the maintenance, and so on and so forth? So they're trying to get a person, it's like getting the engineers who do the design, the initial conceptual design for the raising of a road or building a boat
Right.
launch. It's the same concept around solar. And whether we pay for it through the community solar for a good long time going forward, or whether we do our own and then reduce the
Oh, good.
operating cost overall, is something that would be necessary for us to think about too.
I'm glad that last part is on the agenda, because
Yeah.
it's thinking creatively. Great.
So I don't know if that explains it
What?
properly or
I
not.
have no
I'm not
idea.
Howie,
This is
and you
not
can certainly
something I've
invite
looked
Howard.
into, but I have no idea how much an array of solar panels costs. Yeah, I would hope that this is a drop in the bucket compared to that cost. If you told me, if we want to put solar panels on the roof of this building, it's going to be $200,000, then this is a drop in the bucket. But if it's only going to be $50,000, we're paying a lot to get that.
That's a big array.
Well, I don't know, that's why I'm
Well, and
asking.
I think,
I like the line of inquiry, because I guess I would like to be, I wouldn't mind hearing from the head of the Energy Committee, honestly, about what level, the serial examination of the specific solar issues that have come up from time to time does not constitute the kind of information that is here. I would like to know how informed they have gotten on a sort of pro bono basis in terms of becoming an informed consumer with respect to the set of activities that are described in this document, meaning I can call up Rob Tazy at Assured Solar, I can call up any one of a dozen people and have them here in the next week. And they may be trying to, I'm not sure they're really trying to sell you solar panels at that stage. I mean,
Rob is.
But Well, I know him well. We've done 3 solar projects with him, and I don't hold myself out as an expert, but
That was a good guy.
I think things, I suspect there are things like ground mount that are really expensive. But if you don't have roof structure to play with and you got
You have
reinforced
to do
roofs,
that, yeah.
then that changes the nature of that question. So I think maybe it's not for us to satisfy our curiosity by talking to the head of the committee. Maybe it's yours.
I'm
To
happy
say-
to have the person come here, honestly.
We can invite him to your next meeting, and
Yeah.
you can
Yeah.
move from this, and we can invite him for the next meeting.
I'd like
Well,
that.
Marge shaking her head.
I got an old different question.
What's your question before we do that?
Well, the voters spoke pretty strongly about solar. Now, were they speaking some?
At Mitchell Field.
At Mitchell
Mitchell
Field.
Field.
So my
Only.
question is that townwide? Is that applied to this $12,000 that we're asking for here? Jane's shaking her head, but I don't know the answer to that. I mean, was that just because it was Mitchell Field, or were they speaking from the solar side? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, having been involved with Mitchell Field since pretty much being involved
Beginning
with
of time.
anything, there has been a very strong debate in town about the use of Mitchell Field, the open area, which in the master plan was designated as, quote, conservation area. But there's a debate between some people who want Mitchell Field to pay for itself through revenue of one sort or another.
Speak into the mic, Jane. You just keep moving.
Sorry, can you hear now? Okay, right up. Okay. Some people would like to see Mitchell Field generate more revenue. And a solar panel project that was proposed would have done that. Others who are very strongly of the opinion that that is a very special place on the shore, and it should be kept as open as possible and unencumbered as possible in areas beyond the business district. So that's been the debate going along.
And that
So
was
it's
essentially
not-
settled with the referendum, right? It wasn't
Yes.
a close vote.
It was
Yes,
not a
the
close
solar
vote.
piece,
And
it's the
I
Mitchell
I
Field
think it's
itself.
fair to say, I mean,
I would think it was Mitchell Field, yeah.
It is
Yeah.
I don't think it applies to this kind of
Well, that's-
solar project on the
That's what I-
buildings.
That was my question. Thank you.
Okay, so
Thanks so much.
it sounds like perhaps we do want him to come. That would be great.
Could I ask if you would, since you're going to have this on your next agenda, could we discuss the assessing proposal at your next meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
I just handed it out today. You may not have had
So-
time to read it.
Good idea.
I was speed reading while Jane was talking.
I don't think so.
With that number.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay,
So
great.
we could start with, we have several things we're going to start with next week. Before we do consensus, is that? Is there anything else on the special projects besides the assessing?
No.
Okay, yeah, the rest of them are staying the same or not requested. Okay, so with that change, we will move to other matters. And one of those other matters is approving the minutes of the last meeting. And thank you, Terry, for putting these together.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's great. Does the administration have anything they need to add for other matters?
No?
Thank you so much for keeping us straight today.
Yeah. And thanks for the
And
hearing.
for keeping track of all the things we're going to have next week.
I think for a 3-hour meeting, that went pretty well.
Yeah.
Right on the bottom.
We need,
Paul
I
Plummer was the guest
was going to
star.
say, we need some fortification next week.
Yeah, we
Oh,
covered
we're
some ground.
adjourned.